Green Stories from Leicester Libraries Neighbourhood Services. I'm Matt, and I'm going to tell you a story today called 3 Green Ladies. Once, on the top of a hill, in the county of Derbyshire, in the very heart of England, stood 3 huge old trees. In fact, they were older than old, those trees. They were ancient, hundreds and hundreds of years. So old, in fact, that nobody knew just how old they were. So, of course, the locals, they had a name for those 3 trees, and they called them the 3 Green Ladies. Now, the trees and the hill stood right in the middle of a wealthy farm. And the man who farmed that land, well, he was the kind of man, he knew that he belonged to the land more than the land belonged to him. And he used to say, I shall care for this land, for as long as I live, for it is my responsibility. I shall care for it just as my father did before me and his father before him. And I shall teach my sons to care for it after I'm gone. Now, there was a family tradition in that family. Every Midsummer's Eve, the head of the family would gather a bunch of primroses and he would climb that hill and lay a few flowers at the roots of each of those green ladies. And he would sit for a while in their shade and gaze out over the land and just enjoy being at peace in the company of those ancient living things. And every summer, the farmer followed this tradition. Until the day came when the farmer lay dying. And he called his 3 sons to him and he said, boys, listen, I have cared for this land for as long as I have lived, but soon the responsibility will pass to you. Please care for it well after I'm gone. And don't forget to take a bit of primrose up the hill for the 3 green ladies on Midsummer's Eve. And with that, he closed his eyes and he breathed his last. Now, the eldest son, as was the law in those days, he inherited most of the land and the farm and the hill and the 3 green ladies. But he was not the kind of man that his father had been. And no sooner had he inherited than he'd be seen strutting around the village. All this land is mine, and I can do with it whatever I like. And he wasn't interested in taking primroses up the hill on Midsummer's Eve. Pah! Stupid old superstition. That needs to be buried along with my father. But the youngest son, he had listened well to his father's words. And on Midsummer's Eve, he gathered the primroses and he climbed that hill. And he lay a few flowers at the root of each of those great trees. And he sat for a while in their shade and he gazed out over the land and just enjoyed the peace and being in the company of those ancient living things. But when he came back down the hill, his brother was waiting for him. What are you doing on my land, on my hill, sitting beneath my trees? He said. I was just doing as our father taught us, and I took a few primroses up for the 3 green ladies, said the younger brother. Well, it'll be the last time, because you are not to set foot on my land again without my permission. And anyway, after tomorrow, there will only be 2 green ladies, for I intend to cut down one of them for timber to make a new barn. And so it was. On Midsummer's Day, he sharpened his axe and he climbed the hill with that axe over his shoulder. And when he reached the top, he began to chop, and he chopped and he chopped and he chopped at the heart of that tree. And he chopped and he chopped and he chopped at the heart of that tree. And he chopped and he chopped and he chopped through the heart of that tree. And at dusk, as the tree was about to fall, a sudden wind blew up from nowhere. And the tree screamed like a dying woman. And the wind spun it around on its roots and it fell onto the top of the farmer. And it killed him there on the spot. And the servants came and they carried him away. And they cut up the green lady and they took away the timber to build a barn. And, of course, the middle brother inherited the land. And unfortunately, he was just the same as his older brother, and he bragged and he boasted, "All this land is mine, I can do with it as I will," he'd say. And he wasn't interested in ridiculous old superstitions, primroses and green ladies. Pah! But a year passed, and the youngest son again gathered the flowers from the garden, and he climbed that hill. And he placed the flowers at the roots of the two green ladies, and he sat for a while in their shade, and he gazed out over the land, and he enjoyed just being in the company of those ancient living things. But when he came back down the hill, of course, his brother was waiting for him. "What are you doing on my land?" he said. "What are you doing on my hill, sitting under my trees?" "Well, I was just taking primroses, as our father has taught us," said the younger brother. "Well, it'll be the last time," said his brother, "for that's my land and you are not to set foot on it again without permission. And anyway, after tomorrow, there will only be one green lady, for I intend to chop down one of them for timber to make a new fence, to keep you off my land." And so, on Midsummer's Day, he sharpened his axe, and he climbed that hill with the axe over his shoulder. And when he reached the top, he began to chop, and he chopped, and he chopped, and he chopped at the heart of that tree. And he chopped, and he chopped, and he chopped at the heart of that tree. And he chopped, and he chopped, and he chopped through the heart of that tree. And at dusk, as the tree was about to fall, a wind suddenly blew up out of nowhere. And the tree screamed like a dying woman. And the wind whirled it around on its roots, and it fell onto the top of the middle brother and killed him there on the spot. And the servants came out, and they took the brother away, and they cut up the green lady and took away the timber to build a fence. But now, of course, the youngest brother inherited the land. And as we already know, he had listened to the words of his father well, and he cared for that land. And every midsummer, on Midsummer's Eve, he would gather a bunch of primroses, and he would climb that hill, and he would lay the flowers at the root of the one green lady. And he would sit for a while in her shade and gaze out over the land and just enjoy being in the presence of that one ancient living thing. Now that the land is cared for properly, it is true that two saplings have sprung up either side the one green lady. And if we continue to care for the land we live on, those saplings will grow and grow and grow. And where now stands just one green lady, one day in the future, 3 green ladies will stand there again. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.